When you think of Dandadan, what is it that first comes to mind? A vengeful grandma goes to challenge a teenager to foot races? Aliens with banana-shaped devices? A mannequin sporting the abilities of Speedy Gonzales? Or a Mongolian deathworm moonlighting as a local deity? Because those are all regular first days in Dandadan. At first glance, it feels like pure chaos. Like its creator spun a roulette wheel labeled ghosts, aliens, pervy grannies, kaiju and monsters, and just went with whatever came up. But here's the thing. Dandadan's madness isn't random. Every absurd scene, every grotesque ghost, and over-the-top moment actually hides something deeper. It's weird, yes, but it's the kind of meaningful weird that makes you laugh 1 second and then suddenly go, wait, am I feeling things right now? Today, I'm going to dig into why Dandadan's absurdity works, how its shock, irreverence, and chaos not only make for some of the most memorable scenes in modern anime, but also carry sharp satire and surprising emotional weight. Basically, if you thought Dandadan was just about Turbo Granny trying to bite off someone's, well, you know, stick around. There's a lot more hiding under the surface. One of Dandadan's distinctive strengths is how it intertwines real-world urban legends and mythology into a completely bonkers narrative. Like someone dumped Japanese folklore, UFO conspiracy theories, and a stack of ghost stories into a blender, hit puree, and then said, yes, this is art now. But the end result, surprisingly, isn't just for giggles. It often carries meaning. The series revels in mixing the ridiculous and the profound, using wild supernatural scenarios as mirrors for real human issues. One moment you're laughing at a ghost granny yelling something that would get your nan banned from Facebook, the next you realize that very ghost embodies the trauma of real-world victims. This is the power of absurd storytelling. It sugarcoats the heavy themes, making them palatable and memorable, like sneaking your medicine into a cupcake, if that cupcake also screamed about your privates on the way down. In psychological terms, it is often said that dark or taboo humor allows us to deal with difficult subjects, often lightening the mood so we can process pain or injustice. In Dandadan, the most bizarre ghosts and monsters often represent societal wrongs, and by presenting them with irreverence, the story invites us to laugh, abruptly stop, and then go, wait, was that ghost making a point about systemic injustice? Take Turbo Granny for example. At first glance, she's pure absurd comic relief. A foul-mouthed yokai who literally challenges teenage boys to street races, offering outrageous bargains in the mix. She's shockingly vulgar, perversely funny, and frankly, the kind of ghost you'd cross the street to avoid, only for her to catch up to you at 100 kilometers an hour anyway. On the surface, her antics are played for laughs, but lurking beneath that cackling exterior is a genuinely dark layer. Turbo Granny haunts a tunnel where real girls were murdered, comforting their spirits and targeting men who wander those grounds, which suddenly makes her less crazy ghost auntie and more vengeful feminist spirit. In fact, all of her man-chasing and gobbling threats turn out to be a kind of twisted spectral justice. This adds a poignant layer to an otherwise ludicrous character. The story uses her crude irreverence to keep us laughing, and perhaps to cope with the darkness of the topic, while quietly highlighting the horror of sexual violence. Turbo Granny's absurd behavior becomes a cathartic satire on predatoriness. By literally biting off male victims' genitals, she's a grotesque manifestation of vengeance for wrong. And the predator herself at this point, let's face it. The shock factor makes the social commentary impossible to forget. In essence, through Turbo Granny, Dandadan turns trauma into a wild farce, allowing the audience to cheer, chuckle, be outraged, and ultimately even question whether laughing is the right reaction at all. After all, poor Okarun is pretty innocent in all of this. Does he really deserve to get his balls stolen? Doesn't that make him also a victim? And wait, why are we laughing at that? Maybe questioning that is part of the point. It's all terribly improper, and that's precisely why it sticks with us. Because this constant whiplash forces the audience's mind to stay engaged. And also, I will never get tired of seeing Maneki-neko Turbo Granny squinting at a smartphone like she's about to order something highly inappropriate off of Amazon. Acrobatic Silky offers a similar blend of memorable absurdity and melancholy satire. She first shows up as a spooky ballerina ghost who seems to have mistaken the afterlife for America's Got Talent, flipping, leaping and contorting through the air in a flowing red dress like some haunted Cirque du Soleil dropout. The name itself, Acrobatic Silky, sounds like a brand of luxury bedsheets, which only makes her menacing introduction that much funnier. In a surreal sequence, Silky obsesses over a high school girl, Ira, and drags her into a deadly high-flying dance/fight routine, with hair whipping like weapons. It's a bizarre, sensational scene that I could only describe as Cirque du Soleil meets The Ring. Yet, as absurd as the ghost's methods are, the story then unveils Silky's tragic backstory, hitting the audience with an emotional sucker punch. Episode 7 of Season 1 reveals that behind this ghost's flamboyant, almost campy violence are themes of graphic abuse, prostitution, and suicide. In life, Silky, or the woman who became her, endured heartbreak, exploitation, and loss, a despair so deep it imprinted on her spirit. Her final acrobatic performance is tinged with sorrow. The anime's flashback sequence is surprisingly somber, even set to gentle piano music as we learn of Acrobatic Silky's heartbreaking tale of loss and death. This contrast, an anarchic ghost battle followed by a gut-wrenching life story, exemplifies how Dandadan uses absurdity to lure us in and then delivers social commentary unflinchingly. Silky's story shines a light on the exploitation of young women, literal prostitution in her case, and the despair it breeds. Her character's inspiration, the urban legend of Sarah Sarah, a spirit who curses those who witness her dance or acrobatic performance, is itself commentary. Society is cursed by the way it treats vulnerable women, and no one can look upon that tragedy without consequence. The shock factor of Silky's violent dance makes the underlying message, a critique of abuse and the neglect of its victims, hit even harder. It's satire by way of ghost story. We get a sensational spectacle that both entertains and condemns real-world cruelty, essentially shaking the audience out of apathy. We appreciate hope more in a bleak, absurd world, or we recognize truth when it's spoken by a foolish, mad character. And in true Dandadan style, even as we wipe a tear for Silky's fate, a bit of irreverent humor isn't far behind. After all, what goes better after a tearful, tragic backstory than a bit of petty dinner-time arguing? These themes only get wilder in Dandadan's second season, where the show goes, you know what this ghost story needs? Human sacrifice. And the giant worm. Here, the series crafts absurd scenarios to expose both the ridiculousness and the horror of human blind faith. Enter the tale of the evil eye and the Tsuchinoko, a story that starts out like a classic eerie folktale and ends like the punchline of the world's darkest Monty Python sketch. The old village where Gigi resided in had a legend that tells of a giant snake, the Tsuchinoko, living in a volcano, to whom a powerful family, the Kito clan, routinely sacrificed people. This is presented with a straight face at first, an unsettling folk ritual born of fear. The Kito sincerely believed that tossing kids into a worm pit was the only way to prevent eruptions. Because sure, why not appease a geological disaster with a human buffet? What could possibly go wrong? It's a setup reminiscent of real history and myth, the kind that could easily be played as pure horror. But Dandadan being what it is, the situation soon spirals into absurdity. For one, the almighty Tsuchinoko turns out not to be a divine serpent at all, but basically a Mongolian deathworm straight out of cryptid lore. A prehistoric nightmare that looks like it crawled out of a B-movie about killer intestines. And this god has zero loyalty to its devotees. When the Kito family finally comes face to face with their deity in its underground lair, they kneel, pray reverently, and are immediately got down mid-prayer. It's shock comedy with bite, a satirical jab at blind faith and the madness of human sacrifice. The absurd irony is impossible to miss. Those who sacrifice others in the name of a false god end up literally sacrifice themselves. A rather fitting cosmic justice, served cold and slimy. And at the heart of this fiasco is the evil eye, one of Dandadan's most compelling, absurd, villains turned allies. He's first introduced like a proper horror movie nightmare. A lanky, grinning yokai whose death glare can literally curse you into offing yourself on the spot. Essentially, he's the ghost of a very angry child who wakes up every morning and chooses violence. Against everyone. At first glance, he seems like a one-note baddie, pure cackling chaos with murder on the brain. The evil eye is actually the restless soul of a boy who was sacrificed by the Kito family centuries ago. When he was alive, this nameless child was caged and starved, destined to be thrown to the worms as an offering. His only wish was to play outside with the other children, a simple innocent dream never fulfilled. After his cruel death, the boy lingered as a spirit in the Kito sacrificial house. He even tried to save another little boy from being sacrificed, a futile effort as he's just a ghost who can only watch. Eventually, all that pain twisted him into the evil eye we meet. A curse so powerful it's basically a final boss in underwear. Like the universe wanted to give this terrifying spirit maximal intimidation points but forgot to render him pants. His vengeance is so ridiculously over the top, it's darkly comedic. He's drop-kicking grown adults into walls, summoning cosmic grudge blasts, and generally going full wrestling villain while looking like he just rolled out of bed. The social commentary here is clear as day. The evil eye is a man-made curse. Had the townspeople not clung to barbaric traditions and superstitions, there would be no evil eye. Their ignorance created the very monster they feared. This idea that human madness creates real horror is a sharp criticism wrapped in supernatural package. The story milks the shock value, making him so cartoonishly evil you're begging the heroes to survive, then peeling back the layers and you are suddenly rooting for him to get some justice, preferably at the Kito's expense. In the end, Dandadan uses this whole arc to satirize the dangers of willful ignorance. The Kitos elevated a literal worm to godhood and sacrificed people for centuries while feeling righteous in their endeavors. And the universe of the story punishes them poetically. First by birthing the evil eye, a living curse of their own making, and second by having their beloved god unceremoniously devour them. To pop in for dinner with Kami-sama? Oh wait, you are the dinner. In Dandadan, shock and absurdity are on random. They are wielded to deliver justice and critique in equal measure. Not all of Dandadan's commentary comes from tragic backstories. Often, the series serves up satire of everyday human flaws through short, absurd gags and situations. A prime example is the character Seiko, the chain-smoking iron-wheel grandmother of the heroine Momo. Seiko is a seasoned spirit medium who readily accepts ghosts, spirits, and all manner of occult phenomena as real, but hilariously, she absolutely refuses to acknowledge the existence of aliens. This running joke is a brilliant bit of commentary on how people can cling to their worldview despite blatant evidence to the contrary. In one scene, Momo literally brings a towering, bug-eyed mantis man from space into Seiko's living room as proof that aliens exist. There's even a giant UFO involved in the encounter. Seiko's reaction? She squints at the alien creature and insists it's a kappa, a water goblin from Japanese folklore, and casually dismisses the spaceship as if it were no more interesting than a passing cloud. It's an absurd denial so strong it borders on delusion, and it's played for wonderful comedy. Indeed, Seiko's stubbornness satirizes the very human tendency to filter reality through our preconceptions. She believes in yokai, but not aliens, so even a bug from outer space must, to her, be a folkloric kappa in disguise. This gag winks at issues like confirmation bias and reluctant acceptance of new ideas in a delightfully exaggerated way. She's basically an old eccentric shouting, "Nonsense! It's clearly a swamp goblin!" while an alien is probing a cow in her yard. But we also recognize a bit of truth in it. How often do people reject new truths that challenge their old beliefs? By amplifying that trait to comedic extremes, Dandadan makes a slight satirical point. Humans can be ridiculous in our refusal to update our old views, even when evidence is abducting cattle right before our eyes. Another amusing, slightly satirical moment comes in Okarun's little training arc. It is not your usual shonen fare. When Akarun has to power up to face the evil eye, Dandadan doesn't give him a Rocky-style montage or have him drag logs through the snow. No, the show goes, push-ups? Too boring. Let's have him fist-fight Beethoven. So Akarun ends up sparring with the ghosts of famous classical composers, haunting his school music room, because why not? This on its own is prime absurdist comedy. It's so over the top you can't help but laugh, and maybe start humming along. But what really makes the scene brilliant is the cheeky music choice. Ode to Joy from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, aka the European anthem. This is a piece that famously celebrates unity, brotherhood, all humanity coming together in joy. And here it is, underscoring a full-on ghost mosh pit, where humans and spirits are absolutely not coming together in harmony. Unless you count colliding headfirst into each other. The contrast is hilariously perfect. On one level, it's just incongruity for comedy's sake, a noble, uplifting song playing over a slapstick supernatural brawl. But on another level, it feels like Dandadan is winking at us saying, yes, unity is beautiful, but let's be honest here, we'd all still be punching each other in the face. The fight choreography syncing perfectly to the music even feels like a parody of Finding Order in Chaos, as if Beethoven is personally conducting this paranormal beatdown. It's one of the most chaotic versions of world peace you'll ever see. In the end, Dandadan demonstrates the remarkable power of shock and absurdity in storytelling. By pushing scenarios to outrageous extremes, be it a ghost granny demanding indecent wagers, or villagers praying to a man-eating worm, the series engraves its scenes into our minds. The shock factor grabs our attention and tickles our funny bone, but it's the purpose behind the absurdity that gives these scenes lasting impact. Like a jester in a king's court, Dandadan uses laughter to speak truth without preaching. We laugh at the crude joke, then later lie in bed thinking, well, that was actually saying something, wasn't it?